Well, I believe this is podcast 28. I'm like 99% sure, but I am going to check because, yep, 28. And
Okay.
and as you can see, it's not Greg. Greg is Greg and his whole family are sick as dogs, so we're calling an audible, and I gave Christian a call and see if he wanted to jump on and fill in and do a podcast. So we're gonna knock one out.
Absolutely.
No, thanks for jumping on, man.
Not a problem.
So what is the date? It's the 7th today, so this will come out the like 11th or something, and probably just about everybody's getting into the shed hunting. I would guess.
It seems that everybody in the state of Iowa is hitting it pretty hard.
Yeah, that super cold weather and all that snow where you really couldn't do anything for like 2 or 3 weeks kind of gave everybody cabin fever, and it warmed up, and it all, like, most of it melted within like a week. So I think that made everybody want to get out and
Right.
walk.
No, absolutely. It seems like everywhere I've walked so far, except for maybe like 2 or 3 spots, has just been loaded with boot tracks, and even on properties that other people are not supposed to be on.
Yeah. Yep, that's getting more and more and more common, honestly. It sucks. And like I was telling the group, and there's a spot I have it's a preserve. It's uh now I think it's reservoir or whatever, so it's what, Army Corps. I think it's Army Corps engineers stuff, and it's posted. It
Hmm.
is illegal to step foot in on it until after January 31st. So I waited. I was going to go in the first, and I had something going on, so I didn't. And I went the afternoon of the second, and the amount of tracks that I saw in the melted snow from like 2 weeks ago was absolutely insane. Like, I'm just like, why listen? Why abide by the rules and stuff if nobody else does? And
Yep.
it blows my mind how people just don't care.
Well, that, and I think a lot of it has to do with social media blowing it up to the point that it's gotten, and also the excuse me, the market for them now. It's, 10 years ago, when there wasn't really a big market for them, it seemed like nobody shed hunted. And now, Facebook, all that, and now people are paying $10, $12 a pound, and now everybody's doing it because, it's, some do it like me, to collect them, like you to collect them, or get history off a deer we're chasing. But a lot of people are doing it because they want the financial side of it.
But I mean, honestly, like, I don't know of anybody personally that sells sheds. Like, I've
I
done it
know,
I've done it one
I,
time ever.
I know of two guys off the top of my head that they hammer them every year. They'll find 100 plus every year, and they sell every last one of them within a month of the season being over.
Really.
Yep.
Now are they public? Or are they their own private stuff, or are they kind
I'd say
of
probably 60% of it is public, and then I know the one guy, he leases two properties specifically for shed hunting.
really?
Yeah, but I mean, there are farms where he can go out there and probably pick up, I don't know, 60 sheds off of the property every season, and usually he pulls, I don't know, 3 or 4 80s off of them every year, and then multiple 70s, 60s. So he does very well with antlers.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean,
But
even at that, like,
I
unless you
never,
got big ones, that you're selling for, like, as trophies, like, selling by a
yeah,
pound takes a lot of poundage to make any money. I sold, God, it's been like over 10 years ago, and I sold like 120 pounds, and it was $12 for grade A,
yep,
10 for B, and like $8 for chalky or cut up stuff, and
right.
if prices are circling back to that, like, I mean, I could probably almost pay off my farm that I just bought with the pile behind me. I mean, honestly, I mean,
Oh yeah, I feel the same. I got
there's
it.
700 sheds. There's probably 700 sheds in that pile,
Oh yeah, it's well,
and
I have 7 big storage totes completely full, and then I have probably another 3 or 4 dozen antlers just right behind me. It's I can make, a pretty penny, but it's, I could go through, I mean, not every deer, but I could go through my totes and probably majority of them tell you what the weather was like, where exactly I found them, how it was laying, stuff like
Right.
that. But just last year, I sold my first antlers. I just threw all my spikes, fork horns, and little random ones that I found into a tote. It's probably half to 3/4 of a tote, and a guy reached out and he's like, "Dude, I'll give you $300 for those." Like, take them,
Yeah, yeah, and those are the guys that are selling them overseas. They're getting
Well,
ground
he said
up.
that he actually uses them for like wedding events and stuff like that. So
Really, I mean, I've had people reach or like post like on Facebook Marketplace, like, hey, I'm looking for a dozen deer antlers for centerpieces, and they don't need to
yeah,
be anything big, just something like this that I'm gonna spray paint them and glitter them is what I'm gonna do to them,
right,
and I'm like, yeah, if you want to pay me $15 a piece for little tiny antlers, but I mean,
right,
I'll pay, yeah, any of these. Okay, we can figure it out, but
right.
I don't know if I'll ever sell them again. I mean, I've regretted it, but then again, I almost did it like couple weeks ago when I was reorganizing everything. When I got my turkey back, I
Hmm.
pulled two deer heads off of that pedestal mount and moved them around, and I had to kind of move the antlers around a little bit. And I'm like, you know what? If I could probably cut this pile in half if I'd get rid of like the 50 inchers and under,
Right.
or like we've killed get guys that'll shoot deer during shotgun season and they don't care, they're just taking the meat, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, and I used to keep those in a separate tote, and I would give them as people as chew toys. People like, oh, my dog wants one to chew on. Okay, here you go. Here's this cut off. Whatever, have it. But
Right.
I mean, I've even kicked around doing that. Like these farmers markets and stuff. I mean, you go to like Fleet Farm and there's a small antler and they want $30 for it.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And it's literally an antler. Like there's nothing special about it. And I'm like I said, I could probably pay off my farm with that. So
Right.
it's just insane. So I'm like, okay, well, you know what? Maybe I'll dabble into that old farmers market thing this summer, and if I could sell, you know, 200, even 100 antlers at
Right.
$20 a piece, that's 2 grand.
Absolutely.
I
You know,
mean, for something
they're
that I don't care about.
right. For me, I look at that as like, man, that's a lot of new tree stands or
Oh yeah.
cameras,
Yeah,
kind of whatever
absolutely.
pops up. But yeah, I've thought about weaning through mine. It's to the point where I've got so many that they're starting to take up a lot of space. Where I'm like, kind of like you're saying, find them like 50 inches, 50 inches and lower. That I don't know the deer. They were just a shed that I found. I have no history with the deer. I can't hunt the deer. Maybe start weaning some of those out to make room for hopefully more bigger ones. But it's like this season. I don't know how it's going to go. Honestly, it's kind of a rough start compared to last year. So, and it seems to be a lot more competition this year. But
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I was talking to a buddy. I think I have maybe 7 or 8, something like that. I mean, not very many. And I found out I can't hunt my best farm. Like
mm,
he just said, nope, he's gonna keep it for himself this year. And I mean, that farm was I've found upwards of 30 antlers on that farm in years past. I mean,
right,
and like this is the year where I'm like, man, I am going to pile up the old sheds because we had so much thick, heavy snow that all the grasses in the CRP are going to be laid flat. So
right,
any of those tines that you just that were kind of lost in the middle of the shuffle and you couldn't see them in the middle of the grasses are going
mm,
to stick out like sore thumbs. And I'm like, man, I'm going to hit 30, 40 antlers on this farm, and to get the nope, I was like puking in my mouth. I'm like, nah, this
right.
sucks.
Yeah, I got a farm kind of down by Marshalltown area. It's one of them farms where it literally has everything you want on a farm. All types of different diversity. It's grass, pines, just kind of everything. And there's a pond in the center of it. And every year I do so well in there. Well, I didn't get in there last year, and I've stopped at that place 3 or 4 times this year and cannot seem to find the landowner. But there seems to be a little bit more activity out at the farm where it's out now. So it's like, hopefully somebody didn't move in there and they're, going to tell me no. Sucks like that.
Right. Yeah, and I shed hunted a farm a couple days ago, and I've had permission from the guy that lives there for a couple years. I just knock on the door every year. Hey, is it all right if I shed hunt? Yep, no problem. Go ahead. And anybody have been out here yet? Nope, not that I know of. And I walked all over it pretty fast, but I mean a lot of it's just tall grass, and it didn't get. There wasn't a single shed on it. I mean, I'm like, man, there.
Right.
Unless somebody walked it like today, there's no
Mm-hmm.
way that I didn't find a shed. And so
Right.
obviously somebody had walked it in the last 2 or 3 days, which was kind of disheartening
Well,
because I was gonna stop a week ago and didn't, and just
right.
so
Well, then it seems the weather and all that. I think that's really played a big factor. I mean, that and the EHD that we got hit with this year. It's I've walked a couple of my spots that they're definitely early spots, and every year I pick up handfuls of sheds out of them. And between my 4 best early spots this year, I picked up 3 antlers. I just think it was so nice for so long that all the deer just, spread out in the fields and waterways, terraces, kind of wherever they can get to. Cause I mean, they weren't struggling to find those pockets where the food were, to dig through snow. And that, and then the EHD on top of it, taking out all the deer that it did. So I'm hoping it's going to be a good year, and I'm just, maybe in there a little early yet, but it's hard telling.
right. And I mean, I haven't found any dead bucks.
I've
I
only
know
found 2.
I know my area didn't get hit with
Mhm.
EHD. Like according to all the neighbors, like nobody's found dead deer. Like I found one, um, but he was like completely eaten. And
Right.
typically these EHD deer, they don't get eaten by
Yeah,
predators.
I think with the EHD, what they were saying was it's mainly the hindquarters. They leave everything else. Like I found, I think 4 in the park here, and just the hindquarters were gone out of them. And then I had shot 2 deer that had it, and when we cleaned them, everything from the cavity up was just no good, but the hindquarters were fine. So I don't know if that has some theory to it with other animals eating it, but yeah, I guess it was pretty spotty, I suppose. I mean, I heard Southeast Iowa got hit pretty hard, but
Yeah, it was very pockets is
yeah,
from everybody I talked to. Like if you didn't find one, you found 20.
yep,
And it could be, one 200-acre farm has it, and then 3/4 of a mile down the road doesn't have it at all. Where a
yeah,
lot of times it's more widespread and just kind of it's just out there and it's kind
right.
of base. And then this year it seems to be like really bad because like
Mm-hmm.
my farm had it really, really bad in 2012. We lost a ton of deer in
Yeah,
2012 and 2013. So it's
2012 was really bad.
right. And then, even like 2 or 3 years ago, it was bad in other counties,
Yep.
so it seems to take care of itself.
Yeah. It's like, I'm originally from Woodbury County over in Western Iowa, and it's gotten to the point where I haven't even hunted or shed hunted back home in 6 years, something like that. Just because, I mean, every year there's a drought over there. I think we've been hit with EHD over there the last 4 years straight. And it used to be where if we did a deer drive through our timber, it'd be nothing to kick 30, 40 deer out of there at a time. And I think a group went through there 2 years ago and they kicked up 3 deer. Like, we run trail cameras in there, and we might get 5 or 6 bucks on camera, but they're all 2-year olds. There's no mature deer, and it's kind of sad. I mean, there's probably a lot of areas in Iowa that are like that. It's all these guys think that there's 160-inch deer behind every corner, every tree, and I mean, unless you got big chunks of private ground that's well managed, that's not the case. I mean, they're around, but you got to put in the work to find them.
Yeah. And even then, like I mean, I've had years where I didn't have a deer over 150 to hunt in southern Iowa, you know, and then there's other years you have a dozen over 150. It just you never know. It changes every year. And, you know,
Yeah.
I've had years where I'm like, oh man, look at all these 3-year-olds, look at all these 4-year-olds, man, the next 2-3 years are gonna be awesome. And it's like, where'd they
Yeah.
go?
Well, it's like that public that I hunt that year that I shot my 183. I mean, there was him and another deer that were, 180 plus. And then I think there were 2 or 3 others that were in the 170s and a couple 160s. And like, dude, next year, I got the 183. And then the next year, I was like, there's going to be a couple other slammers. Well, here we are 2 years later. I think the biggest one I've gotten on camera might go mid 60s, maybe. It's like,
Right.
where'd the big ones go? But it's just that cycle.
Yep. It's kind of hard to tell. The way I look at it, you can only worry about what you can control. And I
Yep.
heard I don't remember if it was a TikTok or what it was, and it's like, if you're anxious, and this just goes for life in general, but it's a lot of the hunting stuff because we get worked up and we get frustrated. I mean, different parts of the season, you're like, oh my god, I don't have a single. I mean, I was like that this year. I didn't have a mature buck on camera
You had a rough start.
till like almost. I mean, it was almost September.
Yeah. Yeah.
Besides like one random picture. Like I didn't have any deer all summer long on like 5 farms. And
Right.
then, it finally started shaking it up, and I ended up, killing 2 really good deer and having multiple other really big ones. But I'm just like, I'm getting frustrated. But this guy was saying, he's like, everything you're frustrated about and everything that you're worried about, write it down on a piece of paper and then circle the things you can't control. And then worry about what you can.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I mean, your list goes away in a big hurry. Like a big hurry. Like if this, and you like have 10 things on your list that you're worried about, and you circle what you can't control, and there's two
Right.
things left. You're like, you know what? Yeah, I can work on this.
Right. Nope.
So
Absolutely.
I'm trying to train my brain to think that way a little bit and step back and go, okay, no reason to get so worked up right now.
Right. Right. And I think that's one of my favorite parts as being a hunter is, you go through all the struggles or whatever during season, and I mean you're so fixated on those struggles, and like you get whatever, but then at the end of the season when you're done, you kind of take a step back. You're like, why was I getting so mad? And then you like think of all the little things that you did that you kind of caused your own problems. I mean, not all the time, but like me this year, I was complaining about all these things going wrong, and then season ended, and I just sat back like, well, I could have done that different, and it all just kind of added up. Like, why was I getting so mad?
Right. Yep. Because it's frustrating. We all put in a lot of time and effort and money, and it just when stuff doesn't go right, it's very, very frustrating.
Oh, 100%. And it's the same thing for shed season. I've had walks where I go, you know, for an hour and a half and I'll come out with 9, 10 antlers. But then you got days like today, I got off work. I walked 9 miles today and all I found was that broke off base other than, nothing. And I was in really pristine area. I always find sheds and we found nothing. And, but you got to love it though.
Yeah, I think my last 3 walks, I found 0 antlers.
Mm-hmm.
My last 5 walks, I found 2
Right.
total. And so I've really only had that one day where I found those 5 is like it,
Right.
and it was early. It was a spot I don't hunt.
Yeah.
There's other people out there shed hunting. There's other people out there doing all the other stuff. So it's like, well, but I think I'm getting to that point where I've just kind of coasted the last decade on like, oh, my uncle has a farm. Oh, I can hunt here. Oh, I can hunt there. And then like I bought a farm finally, and I'm like, you know what? I only have like 2 farms to hunt.
Right.
Like I used to have a dozen.
Yep.
For whatever reason, whether people move or, they have family that start hunting or, whatever the problem or, situation arises, you're like, okay, well, there goes that piece. Or, have farms that don't have any deer you want to shoot. Like that's what happened to me on one of my farms is there was only one deer on the entire farm all season long that I would even consider shooting.
Right.
And by the time he showed up and was consistent, ish, I was tagged out,
Yep.
and then you're like, man, you know, do you try to hunt him late season, and then there's no food and he doesn't show up and he's somewhere else and you're like, okay, well, maybe not. And
I've always been so scared to hunt late season because I hear so many horror stories that muzzleloaders not leaving blood trails, and I think one of my biggest fears, which a taxidermist could fix it, but I hear all the time, guys, right when the bullet hits the deer, they pop off, and I'm like, oh man, that kill me, but a good taxidermist could fix that, but
oh yeah, that's super easy to fix. And honestly, that doesn't happen that often.
right.
But I mean, I agree with the muzzleloader thing. Like, this happened to me, like, God, I think I've had a smokeless maybe 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. And I don't have an expensive one. I have a hinge gun, and I mean, it's with the optics, it might be $1,800. I mean, that's not cheap, but
Right.
it's not that expensive. I mean, you're into like I think I had a Thompson Center Triumph with a vortex scope on it before, and I mean, that gun was like 800 with everything on it,
Right.
but you still had to use the black powder, and you had to use these bullets that, your best case scenario. Yeah, there's guys that shoot a lot and can be more consistent, but 200's a long ways with one of those guns. I mean,
Right.
I don't think I ever shot over like 120 yards with my old,
Oh, no kidding.
regular muzzle. I just wouldn't do it because I didn't think I mean, I'd missed deer farther than that.
Right.
And then
Right.
I get this smokeless, and it's basically the most consistent you can get. You
Yeah.
never have to clean them.
Right.
And I've never shot a deer. I think 250 is the farthest I've killed a deer. My
Which
neighbor, it's a poke, but my neighbor went out early muzzleloader with it. I went with him, and this is somebody that doesn't. I mean, he hunts a little bit. He doesn't shoot.
right.
Yep, range it 253. Look at the drop chart. Turn the turret in on the death grip. I'm like, aim right behind the shoulder and pull the trigger. Deer ran like 8 yards and fell over dead. You know,
Gotta love it.
and it's one of those things, like, people will. This is one thing that's really been irking me. I might as well just break it out on our podcast. I've seen so many podcasts lately about people complaining about stuff being too easy, and it absolutely frustrates me to no end. Like, oh,
Right.
you guys using cell cameras, and guys using, these apps for your farms, and guys using, these muzzle loaders, and all these fancy bows, and all this ozonic stuff. And I'm like, like, what do you
But I mean, I get what I mean. I don't
I
get what they're saying. It makes no sense because I mean, you look at a deer and you look at the senses that it has between its nose, its ears, its eyes. Like, there's no way we can compete with that. So I mean, anything that we can use to get a somewhat equal advantage to the deer, I mean, I'm gonna take it.
Right, and it irritates me that, like, oh, well, it's cheating to use cell cameras. It's cheating. I'm like, how is it cheating? I
But
mean, everything is the technology that we have now in
mhm,
life compared to 5 years ago is
right,
insane.
absolutely. I mean, you got freaking cars that drive themselves.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
this, but it's like, okay, yeah, you got a cell camera. Yeah, it sends you a picture to your phone, and okay, yeah, the deer's there, but you still have to go out there and make sure the wind is right, make sure you're not moving. You still have to be the hunter. Just because that cell
right.
camera tells you the deer's there, it doesn't mean you're gonna kill it. You
Well,
know?
it's the you don't have woodsmanship is the big buzzword that I've seen on three different podcast shorts today, was the lack of woodsmanship. Well, all you
Right.
do is hang a cell camera. Have you hung a cell camera in a spot and you're like, how come I'm not getting any pictures?
Oh yeah.
How come there's no deer? And then you go out there and you're like, yeah, I mean, this, now that I'm kind of here and I'm looking at it, the trail isn't quite right. Why would I hang this here? You make a mock scrape, it looks good for this is where I want a mock scrape,
Yep.
but it's not where the deer want to be. So you step back and go, okay, let me use my woodsmanship and go, you know what? About 50 yards over there, there's a bench
Hmm.
and there's an old rub. And then you walk over there and you're like, man, look at this scrape.
Hmm.
This is where the deer needs to be, this is where the camera needs to be. That's woodsmanship.
Yeah.
You can't just take a camera, pick a tree in the middle of a timber, and have it magically find a shooter buck and
Yeah.
then have it kill you.
Well, and that's
You know,
I had a perfect example of that on public this year. I went and I made a mock scrape. I used a rope, put my camera out. It was in a really good location, and I think in a month I had 27 pictures, and I think like one or two of them was 130-inch deer. So I was like,
right.
okay, I need to move the camera. So I made the trek back in there, and on my way in there, I was like 100 yards away from it. Then I find a tree that is just tore up from the ground up, and I was like, okay, well, I'll move the camera, and I was getting 80 pictures a night.
Right.
you know, right. So I mean, you still got to go out and
Little connectivity problem. We were doing good for a little bit. Now Christian's all lost up on it. I don't know, maybe I kick him out and then bring him back in. But yeah, we'll hold on one. You there?
yeah, I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, it happens sometimes. It's been a little bit on you, but not horrible. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, it's just I don't know. I don't know why it irks me the wrong way.
Right.
I think a lot of it is well, poor me attitude
I was just gonna say that.
is exactly what it is. Like, well, you know, Bob has cell cameras and he shoots big deer every year. Well, you know, I'm not shooting big deer because I'm doing it right. If I would, cheat and use all these things, I'd shoot big deer every year too. I'm like, I
Right.
shot big deer before cell cameras.
Oh yeah.
I look at it as I think cell cameras are the best thing to happen to deer hunting
Right.
in a long time. I mean, they're in my opinion, the best management tool there is.
Right. I agree with that.
I mean, you can check your buck to doe ratio. You can check, the health of the herd. You can check um, the age structure of the herd. Like, and you can go and say, well, before all the cell cameras, you didn't really know what was there. Before cameras, you didn't know what was all there. Now you're looking at, man, that 130. Do I pass that deer?
Right.
He looks pretty good. Do I pass him?
Yep.
You know, well, if you have a camera out there and you realize that there's a 170 rolling around, you might let that 3-year-old walk. You might let that 2-year-old walk. And everybody teach their own.
Well, I
But
mean, that's what happened to me this year. I mean, on that public, I had, I mean, I want to say he was 4.5, but a solid 135-inch 8-pointer, which on public ground, that's a good, respectable deer. 108,
right,
135-inch 8 at 4.5. But I had encountered that 170 plus 2 weeks prior, so I knew he was in the area, and I had gotten trail cam pictures of him. Now, if I wouldn't have seen that deer and had pictures of him, I probably would have shot that 8-pointer.
right,
But the fact that I had pictures of the 170, okay, I let him walk it like 10 yards.
right.
And that happened, I think, 4 times this year where if I wouldn't have had pictures of bigger deer, I would have shot these 3 or 4 other bucks that I had at 15 yards. But, because I had the knowledge of those other deer being there, I passed those, and who knows, that 8 could blow up into a 150-inch 8-pointer this upcoming season because I let him walk by me.
Yep. And that's where the whole like quote unquote trophy hunting thing comes from. That's another word that just these people, everybody acts like these things are mutually exclusive.
Right.
Like they can't be the same. Like you can't be a trophy hunter
Mm.
and hunt for food. You
Right.
you eat all the deer you shoot. I eat all the deer I shoot. You know,
Absolutely.
I trophy hunt for big deer, but I
Hmm.
also shoot does and I eat the bucks.
Right.
Like I mean, there's such a misconception that you're shooting that deer for the rack. Yeah, you are, but at the same time, you're also shooting it for the meat. Like there's not one deer I've shot and like cut off his head and went, "Yep, this is all I want."
Yeah, no.
Never. That's not a thing.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just once again, I think it files back onto that jealousy.
Oh,
Is
that's
my
100% what it is. Because I know I've talked to you about this before. It's the public that I hunt. I've hunted there for 4+ years now, and the first 2 years, I met a lot of other hunters. I met a lot of locals, and I got along with everybody. But when I shot that 183, I mean, I know of like 6 other guys that knew about him that were pursuing him,
right.
but from the moment I shot him, the jealousy came out full swing. I was getting accused of poaching, trespassing, baiting, like all this other stuff. When the funny part is the DNR came out there and looked at the deer because he knew I was chasing him. I texted him, was like, "Hey, I got him," and the DNR even come out there.
Right.
But it just shows what people will do because of jealousy.
Oh,
It's
for sure.
it's sickening, honestly, that community that we have would do stuff like that. We're all supposed to be a team,
Yeah,
but
we're our own worst enemies, and I'm just as guilty of being, I'm not jealous of anybody, but
I mean, there's the two types of jealousy. There's the poor me, I'm gonna trash talk you because I wish I could do what you do, and like you shot that 100 and almost 160-inch 8-pointer this year. I've
right,
always wanted to shoot a big eight. I mean, then you got a 150 plus 8-point last year. I'm
right,
sitting there like, this dude, man. I'm jealous, but I'm that good for you type jealous.
right. And I don't know what the word is, but it shouldn't be jealous because I talk with
Right,
that with Greg all the time. Like, I mean, that dude's killed more 170s than most people will ever see in their entire life, and
right,
I've never been negative jealous towards him. I'm
right,
always like, dude, you suck. Again? Like, really?
right.
But I'm the first person to tell him congratulations. I think it's great,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
you're like, God damn, man. Like, really? Come
Yeah, I
on.
mean, there's no point in being, negative about it. I mean, if anything, you just kind of sit back and, use him as an example. Like, okay, what can I do that he's doing to help me, be that successful?
Oh, and we've done it for years. I mean, like, you know, back in the day when I first met him, you know, he hadn't he was really new to like bow hunting and stuff. He didn't do it a lot, and we were actually talking about this today. He's like, yeah, if it wasn't for you, I'd still be shooting aluminum arrows with fingers. And it's just one of those things where I was a bow tech at the time. I worked at Gander Mountain in Cedar Rapids and worked on bows, so I
Right.
had all this knowledge of doing all these things and had all this experience that I could help him with, and he's been super successful. He used to hunt all the permission stuff I had when I lived in Iowa City, and
Right.
that's how we met and got started filming together, and that was '05, '06. I think maybe the spring of '05, I think. Like two days after I met him, he shot his first tom.
Oh, nice.
Turkey hunting. Yeah, took him onto one of my farms, shot like a five-bearded bird.
Nice.
So it's right away. It's like, really.
Usually how it works, though, you get the newbies or the kids that go out. You got guys like us been doing it for years, and we work real hard. We'll get one good one here and there, but some of these kids and some of these newbies go out and first sit take down a 180 or something like that.
And I think a lot of that is they just, I don't think, not that they don't deserve it, but I think they don't understand it
Right, right.
and maybe get how big of a deal it is.
Like how
And
special and rare that is.
right, yeah. I mean, my youngest, when she was 6, her very first hunt killed like a one high 30s
Mhm.
9-pointer, bit like 5 or 6-year-old deer,
Right,
and had no idea, but she was super happy about it. And I mean, that deer was on my hit list.
right.
I was
Yep.
jealous. I was jealous of my 6-year-old kid. You know,
Right.
like, are you serious right now? But as soon as it stepped out, I'm like, oh yeah, we're shooting this deer.
Oh,
Let's.
absolutely.
So it's a constant evolving thing, and I mean, I've seen it with you know the TikTok stuff and the Facebook and all the YouTube things, and it just, I mean, I got into that toxic place a long time
Oh,
ago, and
yeah.
I'm not
I
that, and
honestly don't think we're gonna come out of it. It's
yeah, I am not. I can tell you right now, I'm not anywhere near what I was. Like, I am so over all that. Like, I don't have a time of day for it. It's you
right.
know it if you don't directly affect me, I don't care.
Right. Nope.
You do whatever. Well, you do whatever you want. You know.
Yep.
So
Nope.
it's
I agree 100%. Yeah. Hopefully these deer get dropped here soon, because I talked to DNR yesterday, and he said he's been seeing quite a few still holding. And then I seen on Facebook some guys here in Iowa that they were also seeing quite a bit holding on all on public.
So I had a picture this morning of a deer that was still holding
Did
of
you?
my farm that butts up against a public piece. 3-year-old holding both sides still. And then I talked to a friend, and they were down from Wisconsin shed hunting with some buddies, and they found some sheds, but they also kicked up like 4 really big bucks holding both sides. And like I said, it's only the 7th of February.
I know, and I got to keep reminding myself of that, because I mean it's just been so dang nice out that I keep thinking that we're in March. It's
Yeah.
but I mean we were out, oh geez, maybe a week ago walking some pasture, and it's got some fingers in it, and we ended up bumping up about a 160 class holding both sides. Yeah, it was like
Yeah. And I haven't been seeing any bucks to bump. I mean, I really haven't, but I haven't been walking too many places. Like I said, the few walks I've done have been really small and really condensed, and you
right,
know, in the opens on the edges, things like that. I've went in a little bit of my timber, but it was like, I got to go here to pull a trail camera. Well, I'm going to watch this south slope on the way there to pull this camera, and just,
right,
I'm going to walk the outside edge of the cedar thicket to
yeah,
pull a camera. And like I said, I haven't found very much, but it's probably going to be, I may hit a couple public pieces down south
hmm,
um next week, just to go,
right,
if I don't have work, and I'm kind of all caught up. Like, everybody's on the team's been finding sheds like crazy. I mean,
yep,
I did our 3rd video just came out tonight, which is it Wednesday?
yes,
It's so Wednesday the 7th, our 3rd video dropped. By the time this airs on Sunday, I will have dropped our 4th video.
right. I will say though, when you go down in Southern Iowa, I don't forget your permethrin, because when I went last walk I did down there, I ended up coming out with 5 ticks on me.
I had another buddy on Snapchat say he found like a dozen on him, and I'm like, really?
Yep.
Like, I don't think they ever went dormant.
I I think if they did for that 2-week stretch where it was negatives, and then they come out of it
It
because
was probably just because they were under 3 feet of snow. They probably never went dormant.
yeah, because like I did that walk, I think it was like a week ago down there, and I got back in the semi and I was just cruising, and I felt something on the back of my neck. I was like, "There's no chance," and yep, sure enough, and I looked down, there's 3 more crawling up my jeans.
Yeah,
So
that's nasty. You kind of got to pay attention to that more and more. And I have started. I take a bottle of Sawyer's permethrin, and I always have it in my truck, always. And when I get out to do something, I'll just coat it. My thing is, I'll get like the seed ticks or chiggers,
and see,
and
I'm
that is the
thankful for
worst.
you for putting the permethrin on me, because I've never used it before. I mean, just last year I got seed ticks 2 times and I got chiggers 4 times. And then you're like, dude, you got to use this. And then I think I only got them 1 time after that.
They're nasty. I mean, I'll spray it straight on my skin. Like, I'll take a little bit of chemical burn over
Yeah,
them freaking little chigger bites for, that
absolutely.
that stuff is nasty.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, we're right around the corner. If they're already out now, I mean, who knows what turkey season's going to be like? It's going to be gross.
Yeah, that's no kidding. I thought about going turkey hunting down there, because speaking of turkey, I ended up seeing that Tom that I got him on trail camera down there on that piece that I hunt, and he's a big double beard, and I seen him last week when I was shed hunting, so he's still there. And I was telling myself like, oh, I'll go down there and hunt him, but then I'm like, do I want to drive almost 4 hours to hunt a turkey and be covered in seed ticks, or do I just stick to the birds up here where I usually don't have any problems with ticks?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's nice to have options. I
Yeah.
mean, it really is. And it's just, last year I struggled till 4th. I think I killed both my Iowa birds in 4th season.
Yeah, I think you did too.
I mean, it was a struggle all season long. I had a couple. I've hit 3 birds in my entire life with a bow and not been able to find them, like, besides, like, just blowing feathers off,
Right.
and 2 of them were last year.
Yeah.
And I watched the videos the other day, and I'm like, it's like an inch.
Right.
I
I
mean,
mean,
it's like
it's
if
crazy.
I'm an inch farther back, that
Mhm.
bird's toast. If I'm an inch higher, that bird's toast, and it was
Right.
frustrating. I mean, it made me feel pretty bad, but I mean, it
Right.
happens.
It does happen. I mean, that one bird that I shot last year, and I was using a 2-inch cut broadhead, and I mean, it's nothing to really laugh about. But I made a good shot on him, and we still had to chase him down. Like,
Right.
I don't know how it didn't get him. And that first bird that I shot and never recovered that went into the CRP, I don't even know how he didn't die. Because I mean, you could have almost swore I shot a deer by the blood trail that he left, and then next thing you
Right.
know, there he goes flying, and of course flew to a 300-acre CRP field, and it was kind of history after that.
Yeah, I am forever lopping heads off now with my bow.
Right.
I'm not body shooting anymore. I'm I'm taking their heads off. That's all there is to it. Even if it's with a regular broadhead.
Right.
But I'm gonna shoot some sort of decap. I don't know exactly what I'm gonna shoot this spring, but
Yep.
we'll see. But yeah, I'm gonna 100% only decap birds from now on. So I'm
Yeah, I
not.
want to get into that. I don't know if this year will be the year or not, but
I mean, as much as you go, you might as well. I mean, if you can get birds inside 15 yards, it doesn't matter. I mean,
well, I'd say both of my birds that I got last year were at that 8 to 10 yard range, and then I got my buddy his bird at 11 yards, and I mean we put down so many birds last year. I mean all of them were super close. It's
yeah, that's another thing. If you're a turkey hunter and you're using decoys in a blind, you're
Mhm.
not a turkey hunter.
Yeah.
You know how many times I've heard that? Like, oh,
Well,
yep,
and
if you
that's why I
use a pop
argued
up
with guys.
blind, you
That's
use a
why I
pop up
argued with guys.
blind.
I was like, I want to see you go out with a bow and a camera trying to self film everything with no blind and tell me if you're successful. Because
Yeah,
I
I mean, you
highly
could.
doubt you're going to make it happen. I mean, you could probably do it, but it's you got a lot going against you.
Once again, it's unnecessary frustration that you don't need to put on there. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
100% legal to put in a blind,
Hmm.
put up decoys,
Yep.
call the birds right to you. Like, I mean, you're still doing stuff. I mean, what's like
Oh,
that's what
absolutely.
blows. That's what just annoys me so much. Is like if you're not doing it their way, you're wrong. And
Right. And yeah, I shot him out of a blind last year, blah, blah, blah. But I was also going out at, because it doesn't get dark at that time of year, it doesn't get dark till 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, somewhere around in there.
right,
I was going out right at dark, locating them. And then I'd wait another half an hour and I'd go set up a blind at 10 o'clock at night. So that way it's there in the morning. So I'm still doing all the work.
right,
But ugh.
yep. It's
Well, that and
it's
heck, I had the cops called on me. What was it, 2 or 3 times last year? Yeah,
yeah,
coming out. The one I think it was like almost 10 o'clock. I was coming out of the field from putting a ground blind up, and he hit me with the spotlight. Neighbors called me in because they seen a headlamp out there. I'm like, I'm just setting up for turkeys, man. But
right. And I mean, you get it. I mean, this day and age, you never know. So I mean, you understand it, but it's one of those like really like
well,
then yeah,
see, the first 2 times, I get it, but that third time in the same area, it's like, okay, come on, guys, you know what I'm doing.
right. Yep. It's almost like, hey, let me just park in your driveway. This is what I'm doing. This way, hey, this is me.
Yep.
This is what I'm doing. I'm going over here. Don't call the
Right.
cops on me again.
Yeah, it's and the one guy that he's the one that called 2 times on me, and it's all because his dog is. I was quarter a mile away, and if that dog can see your vehicle, even parked up on the road a half a mile away, he will not stop barking. And
Oh wow.
that's what the fuss was about. Is their dog wouldn't stop barking, so they didn't want me out there. It's like, well, I'm sorry, you
Not
can't control your dog.
yeah. That's not your problem.
Nope,
Not
but
your problem.
that's just the day and age we live in now, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, but yeah, I mean, shed. I think the best is yet to come. And guys have found some slammers, but I think
I know. I'm sitting here looking at them guys picking up them big ones, and I'm over here picking up little 30 inchers, just waiting to stumble across the 50 inch.
yeah, I think I got the two sets I found, they're probably 3-year-old deer. They're
Right.
good antlers. They might hit mid 50s,
Yeah.
but nothing crazy, like no 70-inch antlers or something like that. But I don't.
Right.
That farm I found a 70-inch antler on last year. The farm I can't go on, I
Mhm.
found a 70-inch antler last year, and then my uncle's I found a 70-inch antler last year, and nothing yet. But I only got like I got one deer that I
Mhm.
think could do it,
Right.
and that's it.
Well, it's just like it's you never know what you're gonna find because like last year I walked, I think it was 347 miles, and I picked up 118 antlers, and I only had two antlers that broke over 70 is all, and
Right.
they were in an area where I was running cameras, but I'd never seen this deer before, so I mean, you never know what you're gonna find, you could come across a little surprise,
Yeah,
but
and I think that's why I might hit a couple public pieces. I'd actually talked to you about doing it because you were talking about hunting some places. I'm like, man, if you want to meet me down there, you can meet me here in town, and I'll drive down there, and we can
yeah,
like I haven't been on some of them in years, but I mean, we used to shotgun hunt them, and I mean, it was nothing to shoot multiple 170s off of them in every drive. I mean, it just
the good old days.
the good old days. And I mean, now it's even thicker. Everything's
Yep.
managed better. It's harder to access. Like, I mean, there's a couple spots in my head. I'm like,
Yep.
if you're willing to walk a little bit, or you're willing to do things a little different, or
Yep.
you willing to go, okay, this is when I'm going to go in here.
Mhm.
You could get on some big deer. I mean, I'll never forget the last time I was in there. It's probably been a decade ago. There was a rub on a cedar tree. I mean, we're talking like
Yep.
a giant cedar tree, and it was so shredded. There was like 5 inches of cedar shreddings at the base.
I came across a tree like that. I mean,
And,
not that big around, but I
and
mean,
I'm
the
just
tree I came
like,
like that. But same thing. It was like
holy,
spaghetti
yep,
hanging. It
yep.
was
And I
just
mean,
like,
just up, I mean, it was like a mound at the bottom of it. And I'm like, man, this one deer has hit this thing
right.
how many times? Because it's not every deer.
No.
There's probably one or two specific deer that can do that, and that's
Yeah,
it. So,
absolutely.
and then the thing is, there's so many private pieces that butt up against these publics,
Mm.
and they do a lot of the management. I mean, these aren't,
Right.
contrary to some people's belief, these are not your deer.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know, as much
Well,
as we
it's like,
want, as much as we want to say, I mean, we say we get them on camera. Oh man, that
right.
1 8 point, and we all do it, but there's people out there that literally think that they have rights to deer.
Right. Well, it's like, I can't remember. It was on a TikTok video I made. It's somebody said something about, me saying my deer or whatever, which I didn't say that. And, he made a joke saying, "Oh, it's funny how you can claim deer." I'm like, "No, that's not what I was doing. That'd be the same thing as walking into a grocery store and you think you get these groceries because you're in the store. No, you
Right,
still have to pay for them.
right.
Same
Yep.
thing with the deer.
It's different to say the least, but yeah,
Mm.
it's fun. It's part of the process, and
Right,
you learn a lot about people.
right, and that's why I have a lot of acquaintances, and I've gotten lucky to figure out who my select few friends are,
Right.
and one of them just happens to be a big shed hunter. And we were out the other day, and I sent you the snap. He found the match set to the buck that I call crabs, that crab claw buck. And he goes, "Oh man, I'm sorry, I found your deer." I'm like, "Wasn't my deer."
Right.
Like I had him on camera. Yeah, I was hunting him, but he wasn't mine. Like,
Yeah.
good for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Don't sell those.
No.
I'm gonna kill that guy next year.
Right. Well, I told him that. I was like, just keep a hold of those in case I get him next year, because I know I have a really good read on that deer.
Yeah.
But
And that's all part of it, and that's where I've always been. If I've given a lot of sheds away to people that have killed deer.
oh yeah,
I've given Greg sheds. I've given certain landowners, neighbors sheds. I mean,
right.
170-inch sets.
Yep.
Here you go.
Yep.
You killed him.
Yeah, well,
No,
it's like
never.
that guy. It's like that guy up in Wisconsin that come down here shed hunting. I can't remember if Austin knows him or if it's Austin's friend that knows him, but he found the shed to my 183 incher, but from the year before. And
Okay.
I talked to the guy in the parking lot. I think I offered him like $200 for that one antler, just because he's the biggest deer of my life. Blah blah blah. would not do it because it was the biggest shed he's ever found. And I'm sitting here like, but you're never going to find another one of his sheds again, and you're not going to kill him, So it's like, can I just buy it from you? But
Yeah. And yeah, I get it both ways. I mean, I don't know what I would do if, and it's different if you have a relationship. If some random person, like I got a set of sheds back in here that the deer was killed on primetime bucks,
mm,
back in the day.
right,
And the guy, I mean, I'm friends with the guy on Facebook. I have no ill will against him. None of that stuff. I have like 4 years of pictures of this deer, and he drove into town, hunted with the neighbor, shot the deer the next morning, was there like 2 days and left. You know,
right.
nah,
Nah, I'll keep them.
nah, I'm keeping them. And the fact was that my old shed lab, Otis, that we had to put down,
Mm,
found one of them with, it was me, Greg, and my buddy Nick, who I bought my farm from. We were
yep.
all shed hunting my uncles, and Otis comes out of the ditch behind Greg with this freaking antler hanging out of his mouth, like, holy crap, look at Otis, look what he's got. But this thing is, if you like 8 points, you like big brows.
Oh yeah.
They just happen to be right here, but he came out of the ditch
Oh yeah.
with that. I mean that.
I'd be pretty happy about that.
I mean it's short beams and whatnot, but this deer
I mean, that's got to be
is,
like 10-inch brow tine.
yeah, And then the other side had a double that I had found in the snow,
Yep.
And he's like right at 150 as an 9 pointer with this big extra stuff. He went right over 170 the year he was shot.
Oh.
So I mean, some of the deer blow up, some don't, and
No, here,
yeah, that's
mine's not as heavy as yours, but right here, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, this has nowhere near the mass yours does, but
right.
I mean, I think his one brow was just shy of 12. Like,
Oh wow.
yeah, they're. I mean, they're stupid long.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a sucker for those big 8s for sure.
Now it takes a lot of inches to get a score on an 8-pointer,
Absolutely.
And I mean, like the one I shot this year, I didn't think he was that big, to be honest.
That deer's a hammer.
I didn't know he had, each beam was about 3 inches longer than I thought it was. They're over 20, 25. They might be 26. I'd have to look, but yeah, he just,
Right.
he was right under 159.
Yep, that deer is a hammer. That is, I want to shoot a 200-inch deer or whatever, but if I had a 200-inch 4.5-year-old that was killable, but then 160-inch 5.5-year-old 8 came out, that 8's going down all day long.
I'm a fan of less points.
Yeah.
Like I have killed a big 7-pointer with my bow like 5 years ago, something like that. And he's like 133. He's like 5 years old,
right?
Big, huge 7-point frame. And yeah, he was on my hit list. Like, yep. I'll shoot him. I don't care, And there were other bigger scoring, 10-pointers and 8-pointers and stuff like that. But I'm like, if he walks out, he's dead.
Right. Yeah.
Like I'll 130-inch 6-pointer. Yeah, sign me up.
Oh, absolutely. I love those, but then again, I'm also a sucker for mass. Like, these were my biggest ones that I found last year, and I'm really hoping to find them again this year. But people moved in there, and they got, like I was telling you, bait piles out there right now, and so I don't know if I'm gonna find them, but yeah, definitely would love to find this guy again for sure. But it just shows you it's crazy how much deer can move, because I've had cameras there since September and not a single picture of this deer. Nowhere.
Yeah. And I mean, he could have got hit by a car.
Yeah, very well could have.
I mean, there's so many things that happen to these deer, and I took some guff from people when I shot my late muzzleloader deer. He could have been bigger next year. He could have.
Right.
What's to say he makes it?
Oh
you
yeah,
know.
there's
And
so much. That's what I'm trying to teach my daughter. So my oldest daughter, she has no problem coming out with me and shooting a deer. And I mean, my 3-year-old, I can already tell he's just gonna be a little hunting machine. But my 10-year-old daughter, she what was it? We had deer in front of us. She was gonna get ready to shoot, but she started crying. And she's like, they just live such happy lives, And I'm not gonna make her shoot a deer. And I
right,
didn't tell her, but I tried to explain to her because she asked why we hunt them, and I'm sitting here like, I gave her all these different reasons, but I also had to tell her like, there's a lot going against a deer, disease and cars and like predators, all this other stuff. So getting shot by a hunter is, in my opinion, a heck of a lot better than getting chased down and mauled by coyotes or
yep,
getting hit by a car and dragging itself 150 yards before it finally dies. Or
yep, or
oh,
burnt, basically boiling to death from EHD, you
yeah,
know.
absolutely.
So yeah,
But
it's
you know how kids are. It's hard for
yeah,
them to process all that. But in this year, she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go again," and I had to ask her because 2 years in a row, she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna kill a deer." So I get the tags, I get all this stuff, and it comes down to it. She won't do it. So this
right.
year, I was like, "Are you sure?" She goes, "Maybe next year." I was like, "Okay."
Need to get her a turkey tag.
Yeah, yeah. I'm taking both of the girls this year. My oldest, she says she wants to go, but she is not a morning girl. And I'm like, well,
Oh,
you're gonna learn this year.
yeah, yeah. You just once you get out there, if you can transfer them into the vehicle
Yeah.
and drive where you need to drive, and then have
Yep.
food for them, and then
Mm-hmm.
you try to cut it as close as you can. That's where you
Yep.
have your blind set up. You're like, you know what? We only have to walk 150 yards,
Yeah.
to get to this spot. That's where you do it. Like my girls aren't bad, but I try to make it as easy for them as I possibly can because I want them to keep going. And then last year they each only went one time.
Oh, really?
Neither of them shot a bird, but they're like,
Yep.
I don't want to, it's too early. I don't want to go anymore. And then I
Yeah.
took Sophie one evening, but they're so busy with cheer and gymnastics and
Yeah.
volleyball and basketball. Like they're so busy. I mean, they don't have all that stuff. They have gymnastics all year long in the
Yep.
spring, so it's very hard to take them. The
Right.
nice thing is stays later longer, so you can.
Yeah.
But it's also way more difficult to kill a turkey in the evening unless you're sitting underneath the roost,
Yep. No, I agree
and
100%.
I'm not a big fan. Like they don't gobble as much. They're not as vocal. You
Yep.
know, if you have a field or something that they like to eat in before they go to roost, you might be able to do something. And I
Right.
think this year that might be an option. That cornfield that we had on my uncle's um, might be one of them spots where
Right.
I'm gonna put a blind up and just leave it. I think I'm gonna have 3 blinds on that farm
Yeah,
set up.
I made a mistake. I got to get another or new blind. We went out shed hunting and I left my ground blind in a big cedar thicket. And I was sitting there like, okay, well, the cedars are, enough cover up there. All that heavy snow ain't going to
Oh
get
yeah,
through. But we come out there shed hunting the other day and it's just collapsed. The rods are broke. I'm like, well, there goes the $300 blind.
yeah. When they a lot of times hawk will have those man caves
Mm-hmm.
on BOGO, and
I'm going to have to look into those.
dude, they're 5-sided, so instead of being just 4 hubs, there's 4 hubs, but then they have a door opening.
Right.
And turkey hunting out of them, like I wouldn't deer hunt out of them just because there's a lot of flop.
Yeah.
They're not that tight, and I love the window system, but they are perfect for, like, if I go by myself, like I can put the camera way over here and I can sit
Right.
over here and I can either sit it with a gun or I can shoot with a bow, and I have so much room. Or you could literally take 2 kids, you could take two, you could put 3 full-size adults in there and be comfortable.
That's crazy.
They're they're
I,
they're
I've
so
always
awesome.
I've been using those muddy preview
Yep.
series blinds, and I just love that. What is it, 180 see through or
Yeah.
240 or something like that? But I mean, you can see through everything. And like when I took my buddy out and killed, he got his first tom, and which just was a mega tom.
Right.
But there was a hen coming up, and I mean, she got right up to the blind. And the best part is, like, she was trying to peek her head to like look in the window, but if it was the solid sides, we would have never seen her coming. Like,
Right.
she probably would have busted us. But being able
Right.
to see through everything completely saved us.
Yeah. Yep. I had one, and then it got that November snow,
Yeah.
that wet, heavy snow pushed it down, and I
Yep.
went to push the hub back up through, and I shoved my arm through the roof, and I went, all right, that one's gone.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I buy a blind or two every spring, and like I said, those BOGOs are the way to do it. They get on sale, and you're still paying a
Right.
couple $100, but you get two blinds.
Right.
You
No.
know, and especially if you're setting them up and leaving them anywhere. Like
Yeah.
public, you probably wouldn't do that. But if you got some private stuff, like, yep, I'm gonna take the kids here and I want it easy. Chairs in there, the
Yep.
blinds in there, and you're just like, yep, we just have to walk in.
Yeah.
Everything's all set up, it's all staked out, and that's what I love about them. I run the big giant tent stakes and the paracord off everything, and
Right.
they just sit there. And I get blind chairs, and every single blind has two chairs in it, and
Right.
it's just good to go. Because like my uncle, he'll go out and he'll take youth hunters out there, and I'm like, that the least I can do is have my stuff set up for all the years he's let me hunt and stuff like that. So I try to make it as easy on the youth hunters and on him as I possibly can. And
Yeah.
he's, even if he just gun hunts, but he's like, sometimes it's nice to get in there early and just sit in one of them blinds and maybe put out a decoy, and
Right.
then if the birds go away or something after an hour, then we'll go run and gun them.
Yep.
And he's killed a lot of birds on his farm. I've killed a lot of birds on his farm too. So, and he's got a map at his house,
Mm.
like a topo like that,
Yep.
and he's got a pin for every place he's ever killed a turkey on it. And it's crazy because there's like random pins, but
Yeah.
then there's clusters of
Right.
just like, yep, this bend I've killed like 9 spring longbeards there. And over here in this little flat where this little food plot, our clover food plot where we have, calls it the listening tree. It's
Right.
I've killed like 5 birds on our videos there. And
Right.
there's a giant old oak tree. It's like the top of the ridge, and it's got so just dead it fell over because the roots were all gone. So now it's a listening stump. And you would go there in the spring in the morning, and you would sit there and you wait for the birds to fire off, and then
Right.
you'd be like, okay, I'm gonna go after that one.
Right.
And it's by far my favorite spot to sit.
Well, I got my 10% battery warning.
Nice. Yeah, mine's at like 21. So
So I don't know how fast it's gonna die off.
yeah, no, we're good. So like I said, it's the 7th now. Really, we're just gonna keep pounding out shed hunting videos as much as we can.
Yep.
The deer classic's less than a month away. I mean, it's only 3 weeks away.
Yep.
I need to order more hats. I actually got a text message from my buddy Christian, that makes the patches.
Yeah.
So I just ordered all those. I gotta Venmo him, and he'll either drop them off at my house or mail them to me or something like that. But I got to order like 50 hats.
That does not sound fun at all.
Right. So everybody, all 100 people that listen to this podcast, I'd appreciate you coming to the Deer Classic and buying a hat or a shirt or something, so I don't go broke. At least make me get my money back.
Right. Right.
So, but yeah, that's like I said, in the beer before we know it. We might do a couple little giveaways there. We're sorting out all that, but the big one's giving away one of them blinds, that Hawk
Yeah.
Office. That's gonna be sweet.
Yeah.
I have 2 of them, and they are freaking awesome.
Yeah, if I had private ground, I would probably try to get my hands on one of them because when I see you guys in those, I get a little jealous.
It's an investment, just like anything else. I mean, you can do it without. I've done it without for years, but now it's to the point I own my own farm. This is something my kids want to go, my wife can go. I want it to be an experience instead of a struggle and a fight.
No, yeah, 100%.
Because nothing ruins a hunt more than being cold or wet or just, God, it sucks. So
yes, it does.
So if you can just make it enjoyable, then that's that much more that they're going to want to keep going and all that. So, but really, yeah, I mean, we'll hit that, and then we'll have just a little bit of shed hunting left, and then it's turkey hunting, man.
Yeah, that's game. Get some thunder chicken.
As soon as April hits, so we're gonna be busy, hoping pumping out a ungodly amount of videos between now and, you know, June. I think we'll,
I'm
you
down
know,
with it.
I think we got 4 solid months. You know, the rest of February, March, April, May, almost, 4.5, 5 months, man,
Yep.
of just pounding out videos. And then that summer hits, and
Mm-hmm.
that's fun.
Because before the turkeys really start biting, I'm going to be hitting them backwaters, pulling in them pike. Hopefully, anyways.
Yeah, and then that's the thing. You hit all that springtime. Crappie start biting.
Yep.
All that fun stuff, and maybe get out and do a little bit more fishing this year. It's just
Yeah.
so busy with kids. I mean, you know how it is. Kids
Yes,
get
sir.
in all different activities, and it's just a pain. So,
Yep.
but we do that because we wanted them to have it better off than we did.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
it may suck on the outside, but on the inside, it feels good for doing it. So
Absolutely.
awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you filling in for Greg, and we'll see you we'll see you in a couple weeks for sure at the deer classic. But maybe next week you have to get a hold of me with your work schedule if you want to
Yeah.
go hit some public roundup, and I can kind of show you around a few of the spots and give you a few more options. And hell, I might even find something I can't live without and be like, yep, you know what, this would be a pretty good spot to throw some cameras up.
Absolutely.
So,
I'm all
all
about
right, man. Awesome. Thanks.
it. Yep.